So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a video that I should have covered previously, but I think it's better that I'm covering it separately because it is kind of like a separate subject in itself. And that is when we're looking at transit, especially like nodal transit of Rahu and Ketu, there are two scenarios that we kind of deal with. One is the Rahu Ketu return. Rahu Ketu return upon themselves. Okay. Then the second thing is Rahu Ketu opposite to each other. So if let's say your Rahu is in Taurus, okay, and Ketu's in Scorpio, that means Ketu's now going into Taurus and Rahu's going into Scorpio. So these two nodal axes are directly opposite to each other. And what are they doing? And they do mean something. They do have certain stages that they work with. And also, always, if you do not know, if you have Rahu Ketu going opposite or over each other in your birth chart, okay, and especially Rahu Ketu in your Dwadasamsa chart, which is a D12 chart in Vedic astrology, which is known as the chart of your DNA, chart of your lineage, your parents, and pretty much the who is it that you are. Literally, you can read Dwadasamsa as a birth chart and you will get great results from it. Okay, so if you don't know any of these things, check out the links here. Check out my full astrological report under SOP section, and including my books, consultations, and a link to my academy, Maga Vedic Astrology Academy, where I'm currently discussing Saptamsa chart next. For my students, those who don't know, I'm going to be covering Saptamsa next. And you can join this academy anytime. There's no like deadlines or start or ended. You can join it in 20 years and it'll still be here. So anyway, let's get started with our Rahu Ketu transit video. So there are a couple of things that we work with when we're especially, so let's talk about Rahu Ketu return. Okay, Rahu Ketu return, like for example, let's say you have Rahu in Gemini in your birth chart, Ketu's in Sagittarius, okay, in your natal birth chart. But now Rahu is coming back to itself in the sign of Gemini. Ketu is coming into the sign of Sagittarius. So what is this signifying? Well, you got to kind of go back in time then. From the moment you were born, when did Rahu Ketu come over your natal Rahu and Ketu? Is when you were 18, right? 18 to 20. 17 to 20 is that time period where Rahu Ketu transit over each other. What does that signify? It signifies independence. It signifies independence. It signifies stepping into a different phase of life, meaning life of risk-taking, life of adulthood, life of experiencing something outside of your normal childhood boundaries. So what happens when Rahu Ketu first come? Because most of the time in this world, not everybody is going to be learning the right things in their life, okay? Whether it's great parents or bad parents. Because what happens is once we turn 18, we want to break free from our tradition. Whether you grew up in a heavy Catholic family, heavy Hindu family, heavy Muslim family, you turn 18 and you're like, your hormones are raging now more than any other time. You're going to a university, you're going to college, you're away from your safe ground. And what happens is with the Rahu Ketu return over each other, a person naturally feels like that, you know what, I'm ready to take on the challenges of this world. I am an adult. Remember, Rahu Ketu are illusion. Do you really know? According to the Hindu system, you're really not an adult till 36. And you're not mature till 42. Only at 42 you are a real adult. And 18 is such a garbage law to call somebody 18 adult and 18. They are kids, and at 18 you're a child. At 25 you're a child. If somebody who's 40 here, okay, listening to me, Go back in time and see how many great decisions you made when you were 18, 20, and look back. How did you feel when little things happened and they bothered you? Your girlfriend broke up with you, you wanted to commit suicide. And now, at the age of 42, when that same girlfriend comes and breaks up with you, you'll be like, yeah, see you, bye-bye. God, glad she left. You see how at 18, we're a child. At 20, we're a child. At 24, we're a child. At even 28, we're a child. So what happens is, Rahu Ketu are this illusionary node of the Maya. They kind of put you more into the Maya. And they say, well, now that you're 18, now we are returning to our position. You are reborn again. Because remember, they were there when you were born. Now that they're back, they're saying you're reborn again. Feel something new. Feel something fresh. So everybody wants to be in college and partying and binge drinking and fine, their study and all of these things. But it's this feeling of rejuvenation and wanting to take as many risks as possible. And this is what happens with the Rahu Ketu in natal return. Now there's stages to this. First, Rahu Ketu return between 17-20. The second will be from like 36 to 40. And then later on, 18 years later. And then the second stage also represents the similar aspect where you are like, okay, let's do this. You're no longer doing immature independent, agenda of independence. You are taking more of a neutral, risk. Like, for example, my own Rahu Ketu return. I'm like, me and my wife were like, okay, yeah, let's move to East Coast. We just took this risk. We're like, we don't care. We just need to get out of California. It's so expensive to live in California. We couldn't even afford a home in California. I mean, with even a decent down payment, you can afford a decent home in a decent area with good educational, district. It is that bad. And then the taxes, my God, it was just like bleeding us in California, the money that we were paying out. So then we were like, okay, let's just move to East Coast. Let's move to a more reasonable place. So we did that. And that happened with our Rahu Ketu nodal return. Because of the fact Rahu Ketu were like, hey, you reborn, you rejuvenate yourself, become more independent. So we are like, became more independent. We left the cradle of the west coast of US and we're like, we're independent, we're doing something. Fine, it's a risk, we'll take it. Doesn't work out, we'll come back. It happens. If it's your third stage, in the third stage, which will be, the age of 60 or something, you are more breaking away from, you're trying to actually break away from the Maya. So the third one will be, I need to let go of all of these things that I think are for real. I want to go towards something real, which is divinity. This is why people over 60 become so religious. They become so spiritual because they are so aware of their immortality that Rahu Ketu that were holding them back. It's like there's a 3-whale system or 4-whale system. First, when you were born. Second, when you feel like, okay, there's something else new. Okay. Then there's a third one. Oh, okay. Well, let's come into our adulthood. The fourth one is like, oh, you see a grave. You see yourself being cremated. So now you're like, okay, what else is out here? This can't just be it. Like the fourth stage becomes a bit fearful, but it also becomes this moment of clarity. Rahu Ketu usually over each other give more clarity. The first clarity won't be as clear as the second one. Third one won't be as clear as the fourth one. So there's these stages to them. Now, let's look at when Rahu Ketu go over each other, opposite to each other. So, for example, let's say you have Rahu in Gemini, Ketu in Sagittarius, okay? If they were, let's say, Ketu was going in Gemini, Rahu was going in Sagittarius, over each other, what access does that bring? So Rahu Ketu opposite is about being entrusted with responsibility that you are not ready for. Think about it. Rahu Ketu opposite is being entrusted by the cosmos of responsibility that you're not ready for. It's kind of like a shock. And I wouldn't really use the word shock. It's a phase of life where you're just going to have to now deal with taking care of something. That's what Rahu Ketu opposite does. So let's go back in time. Okay. Like, for example, Rahu Ketu opposition from your birth can occur around 26 to 29 or 27 to 30. That's the time that you have finished your education. You are working, and that's the time usually people would get into the responsibility of buying a home, getting married, having children. These are fresh experiences that you haven't experienced. You've only paid rent for your whole life, but you do not know what it's like paying a mortgage. It's a responsibility. You've got a mortgage. You got to pay property taxes. You got to pay your HOA, like in US. You don't pay these things, they're going to hurt your credit. So now what happens is it brings a little worry. So adulthood is different. That's a more adventurous thing. When they go over each other, it's a more adventure. Let's move to a new state. Let's just leave. Here, it's like, okay, we need to take care of this. We have to be mature now. We have to grow up now. And especially like, let's say, for example, you get married, whether you're getting married for the first time, second time, marriage occurs. What is marriage? Marriage, in a way, is a responsibility. You're no longer free the way you can just get up and start dating people or sleep with as many people as you like. It's a responsibility. You have a responsibility to the other person and the trust that has been given through the other person. You have children. That's definitely a karmic responsibility. So that becomes the stage of not being shocked, but being entrusted with responsibility. It is the point of karmic judgment. Like, we're going to judge you. How well do you do with your spouse, with your children, with your home, with your assets, with your parents? That's the responsibility. And this is something which is not the greatest thing, but like in Western society, in US, what happens is and it's not to blame the young people, because everybody's working like a machine. Everybody's working like a dog now. And pretty much it's going to get even worse, because not only you're not going to be able to work like a dog anymore because machines are going to take over. And so what's going to happen to you? But the thing is, most of the time in Western society, European society, well, I don't know, I can't really say about the West European society. They might be a little different, but Western society, parents do not really live with children, and children don't live with parents. They send their parents to nursing homes. What people don't realize, when you do that, that is a big, like a bold marker being put. You did not take care of your parents. Meaning, if let's say you are providing for your nursing home for your parents, even that's not really that great, because those parents would rather be with you, raising the grandchildren, being around the family and grandchildren. Nobody's happy in nursing home. This is why, hopefully, if you are from Western society and if you are thinking about this, don't do it. That's a big karmic log. And funny enough to say this, my mom is actually now moving in with me, from California. I'm like, Mom, it's time for you to retire. Just come home. Just come stay with us. You got grandchildren you got to raise. We've got a decent enough house. You're good. So my mom's actually moving in, with us very soon. So that's part of this opposite nodal thing, okay? That you're going to be entrusted with responsibility. It feels like a crisis, but it's not. It's like, it depends how you take it. Maybe it's a shock to you. Maybe you're like, oh my God, I got to take care of my parents. Oh my God, I got all these bills to pay. I got to take care of my kids. That's what occurs. And, the other stage of this opposite will be much more about taking responsibilities of oneself. Taking responsibility, it still be responsibility towards children and marriage, but this becomes more like it requires a second nodal return. So second Rahu going over Ketu or Ketu going over Rahu, this is the time that a person has to change their diet. I have seen this for some reason. I've always seen people change their diet at this time. And we'll be like, well, of course, they're getting old. They want to change their diet. Yes, probably because of this nodal return. So you can't just go on what the world is doing right now. You got to know why they have been doing it. Because in the cosmos, they are going through this in their mid-40s with the opposition, where that kind of like crisis comes in. Oh my God, I'm feeling low and lethargic, and I feel like my bone density is down. Why? Because you are decreasing. You're becoming a skeleton slowly and slowly. It's like a mountain and then go down. Like look at LeBron James, down for 14 years, and now it's like right there at the curve, and hope maybe next year it'll be more down. Who knows? But in the age process, the more and I'm just telling you from my personal experience. Maybe it has something to do with a career wealth or whatever. But mainly what I've seen, when I've seen this opposite come on people in their mid-40s, it's more about changing themselves in health, more about focusing on themselves. It's okay. So this is the perfect thing. When Rahu Ketu come opposite, it's that midlife crisis. Like, oh my God, I am old. Oh my God, I can't believe I have to now think like an old person. Because remember what did I say? 42 and over is when you are truly mature. Mature adulthood comes at 36, maturity comes at 42. They are now together, okay? Because adulthood coming closer to the maturity, and boom, they start going together. And this is where the midlife crisis happens. And this is where you'll want to dress up. Again, it's about changing yourself. Women and men start dressing up like a young, like in their 20s. They want to buy, convertible and Porsches and whatnot, and they feel like, oh my God, that's it. I gotta live my life. It's about me. Like I can't do this. I need to break away. Like people want to break away because that responsibility, you kind of feel fearful of your own responsibility. Oh my God, I have not taken care of myself. This whole time I've been working for my family and this and that, and I gotta do this for myself. So that's what occurs with opposites. So you can see how gradually, let's say when you are in your 70s or something, I don't know when the next nodal return will be. Like around your retirement age. Okay. And that's the third crisis where like, wow, I'm going to die. I'm no longer wanted in the workforce. Do you know after 65, the television agency and commercials no longer care for your age group? They're no longer advertising to you. Except pharmaceutical companies, no other product is marketed for your generation. Which means pretty much we're all going to be there, whoever makes it there. So it's that feeling of just being in the corner, being left behind where everybody else is outside partying. You're now coming in the basement. You're ready to go down, and that's the other crisis that happens, or not crisis, depending upon your divinity, depending upon your knowledge of the cosmos, knowledge of this universe. It's more of like getting ready, not taking care of yourself as a body, because that's already done, taken care of. Whatever is happening is happening. It's more about now focusing on yourself towards the end process. So these are the nodal return, and what happens is it intensifies these feelings. So you might be feeling this at 61, 60, 63, but literally when your third opposition happens, it becomes like this complete awareness that I've got to get ready to let go of this suit. I've just got to get ready. And there's a saying, um, that you don't want to go as a rogi, you want to go as a yogi. Rogi meaning a patient. You don't want to go as somebody who's a patient, sick, rotting and then dying in pain. You want to go as a yogi, meaning taking your Nabi Kalpa Samadhi, going when you want to go, exiting when you want to exit. And that's the philosophy that you really want to be living by. That's something that I'm trying to work towards, to go as a yogi, not as a rogi. Okay, so this is the opposition. So depending upon your ascendant, and like I said, look into your Dwada Samsa chart. More than even the natal birth chart, Rahu Ketu transit. If you study this one thing that I've kind of noticed, and I'm still trying to look into it a little bit more. Whichever house Rahu Ketu are transiting in your D12 chart, a divisional chart of Vedic astrology, completely connected to your lineage. Because remember, we are our lineage. We are taking curses of the lineage, and D12 will show what curses are you taking. Like, for example, if you're not getting married, perhaps you took on a curse of a lineage. Say, okay, I won't get married and I'll pay this karma off for you guys, you ancestors. You can see all these things, but Rahu Ketu, whichever house they transit in, you will notice you are somehow dealing with some health issue related to those houses. Or if there's going over a planet, let's say Rahu or Ketu going over Jupiter, okay, it may deal with the lymphatic system in your body. You may gain weight. If it's going over your Venus, it may deal with some issue with the kidney. And these are sometimes just minor issues. Or even if it's an empty house, just look at the axis of that house. Like second or eighth house, fourth or 10th house, maybe if they're transiting 4th, 10th house in the D12 chart, you'll have some pain in the knee in those particular 18 months. Or you may, have some issue on this side of the chest. So that's one thing to see. Transit in D12 chart are particularly important. They're particularly important, and especially for women. So if you're a female watching this, always look at the D30 transit of Rahu Ketu. You will notice how they impact you more than even the birth chart. So Rahu Ketu return and opposition in D30 chart for women will actually have much more of a say. So let's say if your D10 or D30 chart return happen, let's say instead of 27 to 30 happen at 21 to 23 or something, you would have felt the similar impact, because D30 is a chart related to women. Why? Because it's a chart of the 6th house. 6th house is the house of labor, work, and duty. And back in the days, in the ancient Vedic times, women were entrusted with duty of the household, duty of the farm. They were entrusted to take responsibility. They had far more responsibility than the modern era allowed women to have. Like, for example, in US, a woman couldn't vote. Women couldn't go to work. And we think it's more, we're coming out of the primitive ages in 60s, 70s, and 80s. But actually, no. Women were up here, and through the dark ages, they were put into this degraded position. And now the time comes up a little bit, so now they're up high. So this is not something new. That liberation of women is not something new that is happening. Women never had to deal with this when originally we were in a much better time, the beginning of time. They were far more powerful. They taught classes. They were actually entrusted with Vedantic knowledge. Women were actually first taught the Vedantic knowledge, because a woman is able to retain more information than men. And this has something to do with the menstrual cycle as well. Like a woman would have much more psychic power because of the menstrual cycle. Like especially if a man has intercourse with a woman, whether it's a wife, girlfriend, when they're menstruating, a man can actually attain more psychic powers through that. They can become more intuitive. So all of these things you got to really understand the history before. This is what I feel, and this is what I'm lacking as well in my own life, is knowing the history of the culture of Jyotish more than Jyotish itself. When you know the culture, you understand the planets more. And this is why I encourage people to read books like Kama Shastra, Artha Shastra. No, it's not Kama Sutra. Kama Shastra is different. Kama Shastra and Artha Shastra, these are two books ruled by Venus and Jupiter. Artha Shastra is about economics. Jupiter is economics, strategies. And you get to learn and you get to understand why these planets are what they are and how they're quite misunderstood than what we have learned. But yeah, divisional transit at the end of the day need to be studied to really pinpoint certain things. Like in D12, it can show, well, you're going to have to pay this karmic debt of the ancestors. It's going to come through you. Whether you take on huge debt that you can pay off and you have to file for bankruptcy, well, that's not something that perhaps your free will did or your own karma did. We think it's our own past life karma that we're dealing with this. No, not all the time. Sometimes you do have to take on the curses of the lineage because they allowed you to be reborn and pay off your own karma. So you're paying your karma off and you're paying off your ancestral karma. Okay, so remember this always. Okay, so anyway, guys, this was my analysis of Rahu Ketu return opposition. If you're new to my channel, subscribe below. And we want to know about your Rahu Ketu return. And if you want to learn about these things, check out the links here. Otherwise, I'll see you tomorrow with our Navamsha video. Bye-bye.